Welcome to the Phoenix Unscripted. This is a sacred space between seasons. Here you'll get unplanned, unpolished reflections from my real life. We aren't teaching or fixing anything here, just sitting with truth and being with our hearts and our bodies together. So settle in, take a breath as we sit beside the fire and reflect.
I'm listening to this song by Schaefer called Wisdom of the Invisible. And there's a line in it that says, "We are made of sea and stars and dust and wind." We are made of sea and stars and dust and wind. The four elements. Sea being water, stars being fire, dust, of course, being earth, and wind being, well, air, breath, life. It's so funny because this week I also watched The Fifth Element. And I feel like I knew that movie was special even when I was a kid. Don't you love how Goddess just brings like little things to you to help you remember? To remember pieces that you had forgotten a long time ago, a long life ago, many lifetimes ago. It's so magical to me. I can't stop being in awe every time I look back and I see all these pieces, things that interested me, things that brought me closer. It was like almost was touching something that lay dormant inside of me for so long. And I would look at it and I would watch it or I would listen to it or I would interact with it and it would be like close. I could feel it. And it would be things that wouldn't leave me and things that, especially as a child, that don't um wouldn't be alarming to anybody or whatever. Just like, oh, she's a little girl who likes mermaids and whales and things. And then as a teenager, I like teenager things like The Matrix and The Fifth Element and all these things, right? But yet, what if, these things that keep coming up for me over and over again in my memories and in my likings were little seeds that God and Goddess had brought to me to help me remember, to help me come back to some long lost wisdom that was inside of me the whole time. As I was thinking while I was walking here, I was like, there are some people who would listen to what I have to say and call me certifiably crazy. And I can't help but laugh because I probably would have thought that at some point or another, especially while I was super deep in my masculine while I was in the military. And no, maybe not. Maybe magic has always been calling me. Maybe the goddess has been here the whole time. And I like to say that, oh yeah, I wouldn't have believed any of that. But maybe I would have. Maybe not as a child or a teenager because I was surrounded by adults who told me magic was bad and witches were evil and anything outside the Christian church was a sin or, send you straight to hell. And quite frankly, I was terrified as a child of going to the eternal lake of fire. So I probably would have shied away from it, but maybe even that was still something, right? Maybe it was still, maybe there was still truth in it, even in the very deep challenge of living and existing in a, ev- you know, evangelical Christian church. It's just so funny because it's like I see the threads. I see them. I see the threads of my life. I see the golden threads that have been creating the tapestry of my knowing. Like when I hear lyrics to a song, and then suddenly realize I'm like, oh yeah, those are the Legos of our bodies. But to put it so, I mean, you could say juvenile or simply or whatever you want to put it, but it truly is like this is stuff, the stuff we're made of, the stuff our bodies are made of, right? Bodies are made of the elements. And then they are breathed into by life. I think this is the shame of Western religions or the Abrahamic faiths is they've created the space where the spirit lives, but they've denied the magic of the body. The very least, they've, well, banished it to merely just being a meat suit for the spirit, and that's it, rather than a co-creator, the a magic vessel. When I call it the sacred vehicle. It's like we're all flying around in these really awesome fucking cars, right? That we custom built that perfectly fit us. And you need both. I need both so much. They both need our love, just like in the fifth element where she was talking about, or at the end where Lilu, who is the fifth element, right, is surrounded by all the other elements of earth, fire, wind, and water. And the priest is encouraging Corbin to tell Lilu how he feels about her. They're talking about love. They're talking about love and acceptance and all that love entails. And isn't that the key? Isn't that the key that unlocks the whole thing? Love is the opener, is the portal to access. It's what love is what binds the soul to the body. Is it not? I see love as a fleeting, fleeting feeling. But love is not that at all. It's so much more than that, isn't it? How can we how can we more fully bring our souls into our bodies? How can we more fully bring our bodies in alignment with our souls? I know these sound like the same question, but they're not. These questions are different but equally important. Because when you glorify one over the other, that's when a balance happens, right? I mean, we've seen it. Ooh, we've seen what happens when we glorify one energy without the other. We glorify the spirit and deny the flesh. We amplify the masculine and diminish the feminine. When you take those things out of balance, then disconnection happens, distortion happens. You literally become disembodied. You'll become talking heads. I mean, isn't that what's happening on both the micro and the macro levels here? There's a disconnection from one in favor of another. Those of us that are here to reawaken the feminine, we don't want the feminine to rule over the masculine. We don't want to replace one archy with another. I don't know if I've ever come across a woman who wants that. I don't know, not personally at least. I'm not saying they're not out there, but look, I feel that we just want to restore balance back to the way that it was designed to be. Not not in favor of one or the other. Just balance, harmony, seeing both in each other, seeing the body just as magical as the soul. As much as one might think, because I talk about the body so much, that I glorify the body over the soul, and that is just couldn't be further from the truth. Soul and the spirit and connecting to that is an essential part of being human because we're both. We're both a soul and a body. We are both masculine and feminine. We're both. But we've just lived in a space for so long of lopsided, distorted reality that any any thought of bringing, elevating one feels threatening because you're always viewing, the patriarchy views the rising feminine as if the rising feminine is going to do to patriarchy what patriarchy has done to the feminine. They fear that. They fear that they're going to be powered over and taken over and conquered. But that's not it at all. And when I talk about the body so much, I'm just here trying to help people bring balance back to something that has been dismissed for so long, millennia. And the church has had a stronghold, had a or not stronghold, a chokehold. That was the word I was looking for. A chokehold on the body. you know, a minute and a half or more. This isn't about glorification of the body so the soul is squashed. That's a patriarchal view of what's happening here. This is coming back to honor, coming back to devotion, coming back to a equity in all that is. Just like in the fifth element, right? Lilu as the supreme being, right? The soul, the spirit, you could even say the Christ embodied if you want to go and use that language. She was, her purpose was to stop the ultimate evil from destroying all life on this planet. But her power couldn't be unleashed. Her power to defeat the evil, the ultimate evil, couldn't work until all the elements were activated. Right? They had even placed the stones around her, just like the pictures had depicted, and yet nothing happened. As evil was descending on Earth and, mere seconds away from impact. Just the just the bringing of the body, right? So the four elements, the bringing of the body wasn't enough. Even placing the supreme being in the center was not enough. There had to be the activator. There had to be the thing that tied them all together. The four elements, the four stones, right, that were represented, the representatives of the elements had to be activated, had to be opened. And they had to be opened with their own element. They were opened by the acknowledgement of their own inherent magic. Right? The magic of the breath, of the wind. That was the first one to open. The next one was the water. Right? The priest took his sweat and drenched it on him, right? And drops of water, from the sweat of his brow opened it. The earth, some dirt was placed on top, and that opened that one. And of course, the very last one to open was the fire, and everybody held their breath as Corbin Dallas, the hero, happened to have one match in his pocket to activate the last time. But even then, right after all the elements, and after all the stones were opened, still the weapon did not work. It still had to be connected to all the elements, to the body, to its life source. Right? The potential was always there. The potential was always there inside of Lilu. She was created for such a time as that. That's what her purpose was. Right? Of course, we learned throughout the whole movie, that was the whole point of the movie, is that we learned that Lilu was so much more than just a weapon. She's an incredibly delicate being that has vulnerabilities and is tough and has a personality and sassy but deeply feeling and connected to her body, connected to herself, her power. She knew who she was. She owned it from the moment that she could, from the moment she was created, she owned it. She never denied who she was. She knew exactly what her purpose was. And she spoke to it frequently throughout the whole movie. I remember that moment when they were on the plane flying to Floston and Corbin, was talking to her and said, Lily, we're not going on vacation. This is a very important mission to save the world, and I'm here to take care, to protect you. And Lulu, in her very clever way, says, I, the supreme being, I protect you. I knew who she was. She knew she was powerful and she knew she was meant for something. But in the end, right, after she had been battle worn and shot up and very, very, and injured and scared and tired, in the moment, at the end, she couldn't see. She knew what she was made to do, but she had to have something to remind her of why. Why does it matter? Why? Why is it worth saving? Why? When everything looks like it's always just destroyed. When humanity looks like everything just, everything that humanity creates and touches gets destroyed. And from her point of view, it's just not wrong. Things were really lost. Feminine feels that. Oh, we feel that so deeply. We feel that so deeply. Sometimes I wonder why why keep going? Why keep sharing? Why keep talking about it? Why when it seems like nobody cares or nobody listens? When it appears that there's no hope. I know the feminine feels it right now. I know you feel it right now. And anytime we turn on the news and we see the latest murders and atrocities across the globe. You feel that song of clouds to the left of me and jokers to the right, and here I am stuck in the middle with you. Mm. Smile just at the thought of the song because the song is kind of, light hearted, but it is a feeling that can keep us so stuck. And if you're here to help the world remember the feminine, to remember who we are and to remember our magic, whatever you're here to help the world remember. And if it feels like that's hard, right? It's so important for us to have the person who can remind us, and in the fifth element, it was Corbin who reminded Lilu that love matters. Right? And even Lilu, she mentioned love. She knew about love, but she hadn't experienced it, or at least she didn't understand it exactly until Corbin told her how he felt about her, which helped her remember who she was. And that she also was experiencing love and that that was worth fighting for. Love was worth fighting for. Love was it. And it's not just the romantic love, right? The love that is inside of all of us. That's the breath, that's the life, that's the stuff that animates, that holds it all together. I can pull in so many other examples of the rememberings too, the reminding of who we are. I think maybe that's a part of my message, is that when we shine our light and we come back to our unique essence of who we are, we help others remember who they are too. That's why it's this is why it's so important to have people around you who can see you, who can see your light. So often we go on social media and it's just nice where it's people who get so deeply triggered by us shining our light and they say such hateful things to us. Maybe you've had that happen, maybe more than once, where you've posted something. Maybe it was something that an insight that you had, or something you shared, or something that moved you, or a victory that you've had, or even a challenge or a vulnerable moment, and somebody somewhere in the world thought that it was their business to tell you how wrong you are, how embarrassing you are, that you're a joke, or that you're fat or stupid, or anything, right? Any insult that they possibly could throw at you to try to diminish your light. And without having words that you can call to help you reflect your light back to you, or people in your life to remind you of why you're fighting, to remind you why you show up, why you do what you do. Without that, you you might forget. Just like if Lilo didn't have Corbin, she wouldn't have been able to stop, even though the entire potential was within her. Everything had been done right, right? But it had to be opened, it had to be unlocked. And because we live in the world that we live in, oftentimes that has to be a reflection from another soul. When we come here, it's hard to remember our light. It's hard to remember it. Yeah, there are things that we could do to help us remember, but even still, it's still right. Even in those things, like, aren't there things that help, that bring you back to it, right? And aren't those things usually created by someone or something else? Right? Sometimes a tree helps you remember, or a flower, or a child, or a podcast, or a book, or a song, or a movie, or maybe a kind word from a friend or a stranger who just so happened to be there and be open and hear the word to say and then said it, that unlocked the love, that unlocked the power within you, and suddenly you felt, oh, you have to have those people in your life and you have to have those tools. It's the only way you're going to keep going, sis. It's the only way we can. We forget. Maybe we don't forget who we are, but we forget why we're doing it. Those loving reflections are a necessity. They aren't a nice to have. if you're doing any sort of divine feminine awakening work, you got to have it. And it's kind of interesting because it's almost a cycle in a way, because oftentimes the only way you're going to find those things is if you open yourself up, if you shine your light, if you share yourself, your true self, your genuine self, right? And of course, that makes you vulnerable to attacks, just like it made Lulu vulnerable, right? Everybody was coming after her because they knew she was important, and they threatened the power that be. They threatened their agenda. I love I love when I open myself up to new insights just from things. It's just like these little breadcrumbs that I feel that the goddess leaves, that helps me remember pieces. And it's cool. I feel like whether it's something you experience or maybe just something that you experience through listening to what I'm sharing, and the insights that we glean from that, just know that however the goddess speaks to you, listen. However you see and rejoin those pieces of yourself that have been lost for a long time. However that comes to you, engage with it. Maybe you're like me and goddess speaks through songs and through movies. Maybe the goddess speaks to you in other ways. But no matter how it is, know that it's there for a reason. Don't be, don't shy away from it. Don't, it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to, dismiss or just say, nah, that's just a coincidence. Right? Those breadcrumbs are there for a reason. And they will bring you back to your truth. They will bring you back to your heart. They will help you remember the things that have been lost for a long time.
Thank you for sitting beside the fire with me today. Even though we can't see each other, I feel honored to have shared sacred space with you. Before you go, take a moment and notice how your body feels. If this reflection offered you something meaningful, pass it along to someone you'd love to sit beside the fire with. We heal in circles, not alone. So until the next show, remember, you are so worthy of your vibrant life. And I'll see you next time.